What's up, everyone? We are back at it today with our picks on this Tuesday NCAA basketball slate for March 12th. Smash that thumbs up button if you want to see our picks every day, and subscribe so you can get notified to get our pick locked in before the lines change. These videos are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com. Click the link in the description and go over there and join our free email list and check out our team's top confidence plays on all the major sports. Get down in the comments with anything you want to say about these picks, these videos, or anything else. Let us know your picks, and we will give you the best advice we have to help you cash some bets. Now let's dive into our first game of the day, Davidson versus Fordham. This A10 matchup is a very early one. Tip-off's going to be around 11 a.m. EDT, so get those bets in early, get them locked up because you are not going to have time in the morning. Davidson comes into this game, they are riding a losing streak. They've lost 5 in a row, but they've been playing through a pretty tough stretch of schedule lately. The Wildcats have not had one of their better seasons. They need a new superstar NBA prospect to come through the doors that's being drastically undervalued. With only a 5-13 record in A10 play, this has just not been a very fun season for Davidson. Their leading scorers only putting up 12 points and 5 assists per game. Grant Huffman is not exactly a monster. This team has struggled on offense. They're putting up only 70 points per game, ranking them around 300th in the nation. Their rebounding isn't terrible, but it's not great. Their defense has been a bit better, so that's been something they can kind of lean on. Their last time out, they lost at St. Joe's in a game that was not close. They have had some fairly competitive games lately. They played Richmond very, very close, but the last game this team won was actually against Fordham. They got the 68-53 blowout win over one of the worst teams in the conference, but not a team that's had as much trouble as them. Fordham actually has 6 conference wins. Davidson only has 5. There's not a ton of positive things to say about the Wildcats, except for they're a team that plays with pretty high energy, and they're willing to crash the boards even if they're not super capable of putting up great rebounding numbers. Looking at Fordham, we see a fairly similar story. They've lost 3 in a row, but they have not really been playing through a tough stretch of schedule. Fordham is just not a very good team. They don't have a great leading scorer either. Kyle Rose is leading this team in scoring with 10.7 points per game. Yeah, nothing to write home about. This team is not good. They're also a team that will try pretty hard on the boards, but man, do they get a lot of opportunities on the boards because they are not making a lot of shots. This team is not very good on defense. Their offense is just as bad, if not worse, than Davidson's. They just do not have a lot to feel positive about. The last time this team won was a huge upset over George Mason, and when your huge upset wins are over teams that are 9-9 in conference play, you know things have kind of gone south. The last time out, this team lost 58-50. Yeah, they only scored 50 points against URI. Another one of those teams in the bottom of the A10. This is just not a good Fordham squad at all. They've had better years. This is not one of them. Fordham's getting 4 points in this game. I don't know if that's going to be enough, guys. Davidson is 2-0 in this matchup. They've won both of these games by at least double digits. One of the games was an absolute blowout. I think we see Davidson on a neutral court in this tournament game get the blowout win in this one. I don't think we're going to see like a 20-point blowout, but I definitely think Davidson should be more like -6 or 8. They're going to get the win and cover in this one. Next up, we've got George Washington against LaSalle. We're looking at more A10 tournament action. George Washington, the Revolutionaries, they have been the worst team in the A10 all season long. They finished with a 4-14 record in conference play. That is impressively bad. This team is terrible on defense. Their offense manages to put up some points, but that's kind of based on pace of play, and they just kind of get up and down and play no defense. James Bishop IV is their leading scorer. He's putting up 18 per game, but he's shooting under 40% from the field. He also leads his team in assists, so if he has a bad game, things really fall apart pretty quick, and he's been known to have some tough ones. Their last time out, the Revolutionaries did play against Duquesne, and they played very close. They ended up losing that game by only 2 points, but it's pretty safe to say that Duquesne was kind of sleepwalking through that one, ready to get into their conference tournament. The Revolutionaries have lost 13 of their last 14 games. Their only win during that stretch was over SBU, not exactly an amazing win, and against LaSalle, they have not had a particularly good time. The LaSalle Explorers come into this game fresh off of a loss over LUC, but they kept within 10 points, so relatively solid. Their most recent win was over George Washington. They played pretty well in that game. LaSalle going 6-12 in conference play, not so good. Khalil Brantley is a solid scorer, but he's shooting under 40% from the field. It's kind of a similar story to what we saw with George Washington, but not quite as bad. This team can crash the boards a little bit. They play a little bit of defense, and their offense is definitely better. They actually have a little bit of flow to their game. They put up decent assist numbers, so that's something that can kind of make you feel better about this team's offensive production overall. In their win against George Washington only a few days ago, they got the win 72-66. Despite George Washington shooting almost 50% from the three-point line, that is not something that's very normal for George Washington. LaSalle actually won the battle of the boards pretty convincingly. They put up a lot more assists. They were able to defend without fouling. They made most of their free throws, and they had 3 starters scoring double figures and 1 bench player. We had Brantley coming off the bench in that one. He put up 15 coming off the pine. We're going to take LaSalle -2 in this one. Neither one of these teams is great against the spread. This is kind of an early afternoon game, so get those bets in early before A, the line can change, or B, this game tips off, because it is a midday. We got to keep track of these schedules now that we're in tournament time. Give me LaSalle in this one. Next up, we're headed to the ACC tournament. We're looking at the Miami Hurricanes going against the Boston College Eagles. Miami comes into this game fresh off yet another loss. They have not had the season they imagined. Their last time out, they got kind of blown out at Florida State. They lost by 8 points, so I guess it wasn't a blowout, but it didn't really feel like that competitive of a game. Only a few days ago, they lost by 10 points against Boston College. This has just been a terrible season overall for Miami. They are not having a good time. Things are not working out. Pack is questionable for this game with his knee issue, so he might not play, and if he's out, there goes 13 points and 4 assists per game, so that could be a pretty big deal, and regardless, we kind of have to think he's going to be a little bit hampered in this one. Miami can put up some points. They're not too good on the boards, and their defense has really been a problem. They have not been able to defend. They haven't been able to score against teams that play good defense. There's really not a lot of positives to find for Miami this season. They definitely didn't think they'd finish this thing out one of the bottom 2 teams in the ACC. That's pretty embarrassing for a program that used to be among the best in the conference and among some of the best in the nation. Boston College comes into this game fresh off back-to-back wins. They beat Miami at Miami, and they won at Louisville. The win over Miami was by 10 points. The win over Louisville was a little bit closer, but regardless, when you're winning games as Boston College here at the end of the season, you have to feel pretty good. They finished with an 8-12 conference record, so not the worst, but obviously not where they wanted to be. The Eagles have a solid leading scorer in Quentin Post. He's putting up 16 points per game, shooting well over 50% from the field. They've got a solid point guard in Jaden Zachary. He's putting up 11 points to go along with almost 5 assists. This team can rebound the ball pretty well. They score the ball well. Their defense is a little bit of a work in progress, and when you're at the end of the season with something that's still a work in progress, you know you've made some mistakes along the way, but they're actually playing pretty well. We see Boston College getting 1.5 points. They won both matchups this season, and both of them are fairly recent, and both of them were relatively convincing. Give me Boston College plus 1.5 in this one. I think they find a way to get the comfortable win in this game. Next up, we're headed to the MAAC. We're looking at Sienna taking on Niagara here in the conference tournament. Sienna comes into this game. They've been one of the worst teams in college basketball. There's no way to sugarcoat that. They finished the season 3-17 in an MAAC play. The Saints just aren't good. There's no way around it. They just lost at Iona by 14 points. They did play a fairly competitive game against Niagara only a few days ago. They ended up losing by 7, but they kept things relatively close down the stretch. This squad doesn't play very good defense. They don't have good leading scorers or anything like that, but in that game against Niagara, they found a way to be competitive. They cut into a halftime deficit. They shot the ball relatively well from 3-point range, going 8 for 16, so if they can put up those kind of shooting numbers, they're going to be in very good shape. They did not get the benefit of the whistle. Their opponent shot 24 free throws in that game. Niagara shot the ball really poorly from deep, so that's not something we can always count on, but more importantly, we saw Sienna hold things even on the board. Sienna actually got a win over Niagara early this season, or maybe not early, more like midway through this season, so this feels like a matchup they could actually feel semi-good about, like maybe they've actually got a real chance. Niagara comes into this game fresh off a loss, a 1-point loss at Marist. They haven't been having a very good time, losing 4 of 5 down the stretch to end their season on a pretty poor note. The Purple Eagles are not a team that has any really good go-to scorers. They're atrocious. They are terrible. One of the worst teams in the nation on the boards, and they don't play at a necessarily slow pace or anything like that. Their offensive production isn't very good. Their defense isn't very good. Niagara just isn't a great team. They've kind of been a betting darling. They've been good against the spread this season, but does this really seem like a spot where they're going to cover 10 points? I don't think so. Not on a neutral court, not against a team that's had success against them this season. This sounds crazy, guys, but give me Sienna plus 10 in the first round of the MAAC tournament. I think they find a way to keep this game competitive, even if they end up losing in the end. Give me the Sienna Saints in this one. Next up, we're looking at West Virginia taking on Cincinnati here in the Big 12 Conference Tournament. These two teams played only a couple days ago, with Cincinnati getting a blowout win. The Mountaineers have not had a very good season. West Virginia went through a ton of offseason drama. They didn't bring in a great recruiting class, and man, things have really not worked out well. They're not a good rebounding team. They have to be one of the worst in the conference overall. Their defense is very bad. Their offense is averaging under 70 points per game. They're ranked 330th in overall offensive production this season. That is absolutely terrible, way below the standards that we're used to seeing from such a storied program. Quinn Zielinski is their top scorer, putting up 12 points per game on under 40% shooting from the field. This just hasn't been a good season for West Virginia. The recruiting class was bad. Their coaching drama definitely threw things off. There's just nothing positive to find about this team right now. They're going to be looking to get this nightmare of a season over with, and they're going to have a great opportunity to end things going against a Cincinnati team that has underachieved a little bit this season. They've won 2 of their last 3 coming down the stretch here with that blowout win over West Virginia to end the season. The Bearcats are a long athletic team. They're a very good rebounding team, one of the best in the nation. They dominated the boards against West Virginia when these two met only a couple days ago. They're a decent offensive squad, not amazing, but good enough, and their defense is very, very good. I think we're going to see Cincinnati take care of business here in their opening game of the Big 12 tournament. Cincinnati is 16-15 against the spread this season. We see West Virginia is only 12-19 against the spread against this season. I think this is going to be a blowout win for the Bearcats. They're going to find a way to get this one done, and I don't think it's going to be particularly competitive. Next up, we're looking at New Hampshire versus Vermont in the American Eastern Conference. We are digging deep to find the value for you guys on this short slate. New Hampshire comes into this game fresh off of a win over Binghamton. The Wildcats have been a middle of the road team in the American East. They've gone 7-9 in conference play, which is not great. They're a pretty decent offensive team. Their defense could use some work, and their rebounding, though, their rebounding is solid. Clarence Daniels is a great go-to scoring option. Amon Robinson is one of the better point guards in the conference, putting up 15 points and almost 5 assists per game. This New Hampshire team can find a way to put up some points. They tend to get things done. They've played well against some of the better teams in the conference this season, even if they haven't came away with a lot of wins, and they've found a way to get wins against teams that are struggling. Vermont, on the other hand, has had the American East wrapped up for quite some time. They went 15-1 in conference play. They come into this game winners of 8 in a row. They did play a relatively close game against UNH not very long ago. Only a couple days ago, they ended up winning by 4. This team is good on defense. Their offense isn't amazing, and their rebounding isn't exactly something to write home about. They do play a solid brand of basketball, though. They move the ball well. They shoot the ball relatively well, and they've been getting those wins, but they have not really been blowing out opponents. Vermont is only 14-16 overall against the spread this season. That's not exactly a sign that they've been blowing out opponents. We see Vermont is minus 13.5 in this game. Does New Hampshire lose in an absolute blowout in this one? I don't think that's what we see happen. Give me New Hampshire plus 13.5 in this game. I think they find a way to keep it relatively competitive. This isn't going to be one of my biggest bets of the day, but we definitely see the value here on New Hampshire. Last but not least, we've got another afternoon game. We're looking at Louisville against NC State. They're squaring off in the ACC tournament. Louisville is the worst team in the ACC this season, going 3-17 in conference play. They just lost to Boston College by 6 their last time out. Before that, they got absolutely dismantled by Virginia Tech. This team has been really bad on defense. Their rebounding isn't much better. They don't have good go-to scoring options. They have managed to find some spots to keep games competitive in conference play, but man, they have not exactly been blowing the doors off of anyone. But man, this has not exactly been a fun season for Louisville. They really just haven't been able to rebuild this program since the big scandal a while back. In the one game they played against NC State this season, they did manage to keep it relatively close, so that's somewhat encouraging. Looking at NC State, they struggled down the stretch, but when you're playing Florida State, UNC, Duke, and then Pitt, you're allowed to have kind of a hard time. That game against Pitt, they definitely would have liked to make a better showing, but they ended up coming away with an 8-point loss. The Wolfpack is decent on defense. Their rebounding has not been that great. Their offense production overall is pretty good. DJ Holmes is their leading scorer with 16 points per game, but he's kind of inefficient. When these two teams played each other about midway through the season at Louisville, we saw the Wolfpack get a win, but it was only by 6 points. That was back when NC State still had a lot of hope left for how they would do in the conference overall. NC State won that game by only 6 points despite shooting 50% from the three-point line and well over 50% from the field in general. They won on the boards, but not by a ton. They committed a ton of fouls in that that game. And Louisville did shoot the ball pretty well. It's been a really long time since that game, so you have to wonder how much we can really draw from that, but it is interesting to see that it was close in this matchup. Here in conference tournament play, I think we're going to see one last gasp from Louisville. I don't think they're just going to roll over here. I think NC State's going to actually have to play pretty hard. The Wolfpack has been bad against the spread, just like Louisville has this season, so I don't think there's any real value we can glean from the trends in this game. Give me Louisville plus 9.5. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think the value in this game is on Cardinals. I think they find a way to keep this relatively competitive. I don't think we're going to see NC State scoring any sort of blowout in this one, so give me Louisville plus 9.5. I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's the value in this game. Hit that like button for good luck on all your bets today, and that's all the games we have time for in this one. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. Thanks for watching. You can click the link in the description to check out stumpthespread.com. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos, and we will see you guys tomorrow for more NCAA basketball action.